I sat across from my 3 children in that sterile law office, watching their faces transform from greedy anticipation to absolute horror as the lawyer read aloud each charity donation. $6 million gone forever, each gift made in loving memory of the very children who had demanded I die faster so they could spend my fortune on themselves instead of strangers. My name is Sarah Williams, and at 72 years old, I thought I knew everything about betrayal. Turns out I was wrong. The deepest cuts come from the people you raised with your own hands, fed with your own sacrifice, and loved with your own broken heart. I built my fortune the hard way. Started at 35 with nothing but a food truck and a dream after my husband died, leaving me with 3 kids and more bills than hope. 16-hour days became my religion. Hot oil burns on my arms told the story of every dollar earned. For 33 years, I served tacos and dreams from that little truck, then 2 trucks, then a restaurant, then 5 restaurants. By 68, I had an empire worth $6 million. Not bad for a widow who used to count quarters for grocery money, right? When I sold the business, my children expected me to sit in a rocking chair and wait to die. Instead, I traveled. Volunteered in orphanages in Guatemala, built wells in Kenya, funded literacy programs across 3 states. The money felt alive when I gave it away, like it finally had purpose beyond just sitting in some bank account. My house reflected my values. Comfortable, but not flashy. Good furniture that lasted decades, not designer pieces that screamed wealth. The real luxury was freedom. Freedom to help people who needed it more than I needed another expensive thing gathering dust. Then came my 72nd birthday party. I planned something simple. Close family dinner at my house, nothing fancy. Michael brought his wife and 2 kids. Jennifer came with her husband and teenage daughter. David showed up alone, as usual, fresh off his latest business failure. The dining room felt warm with laughter and conversation, exactly how I'd imagined it. After dinner, I retreated to my bedroom for a few minutes. The excitement had worn me out, and I needed to catch my breath. My door stayed slightly open. Old habit from when the kids were young, and I needed to hear if they got into trouble. Well, they got into trouble all right. Their voices drifted through the walls like poison gas. Michael's voice came first, sharp with frustration. She gave $50,000 to that literacy program last month. $50,000. Do you know what I could do with that money? My real estate business is barely hanging on. Jennifer jumped in next, and those trips to volunteer abroad. Each one costs her $20,000 minimum. Meanwhile, my daughter needs college funding, and we're scraping pennies together. But David delivered the killing blow. At this rate, she'll waste it all on strangers before we see a dime. We need to do something about her spending before there's nothing left. The room went quiet. Then Jennifer's voice again, colder this time. She's 72. How much longer can she realistically manage all this money anyway? My heart stopped beating for a full second. Then it started again, harder and angrier than before. Michael laughed, actually laughed. Maybe we should help her manage it. Take some responsibility off her shoulders. They spent the next 20 minutes calculating inheritance splits and complaining about every charitable donation I'd ever made. Every stranger I'd helped became their enemy. Every act of kindness became theft from their future wealth. I sat on my bed, listening to my children auction off my life like I was already dead. The next morning, I confronted them at breakfast. Coffee grew cold as I repeated everything I'd heard. Their faces went white, then red, then defensive. No apologies, no shame, just anger that they'd been caught. But what Jennifer said next changed everything forever. What she demanded would lead us all to that sterile law office where their greed would finally meet its match. Jennifer didn't waste any time with pleasantries. She set her coffee cup down with the kind of precision that meant business. "Mom, we think it's time you distributed our inheritance. You've earned the right to relax, but this money represents our futures too." Michael nodded like a bobblehead doll. "We have families to think about, mortgages, college funds. These strangers you're helping don't need it more than your own grandchildren." David leaned forward, his voice carrying that familiar whine of entitlement. "We're not asking for charity, Mom. We're asking for what's rightfully ours." Rightfully theirs. The words hit me like a slap across the face. I looked at these 3 adults sitting around my breakfast table, demanding money I'd bled for while they were still figuring out how to tie their shoes. The audacity was breathtaking, but what really killed me was the certainty in their voices. They genuinely believed they deserved this money more than hungry children or homeless veterans. That night, sleep became my enemy. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, watching 37 years of memories play like a broken movie reel, working 3 jobs to pay for Michael's college tuition, staying up until midnight helping Jennifer with her business degree homework while my hands cramped from peeling potatoes all day, bailing David out of his first failed restaurant, then his second, then his third. The sacrifices felt endless in the darkness. I remembered eating peanut butter sandwiches for dinner so they could have real meals, wearing the same coat for 8 winters so they could have new school clothes, missing parent-teacher conferences because I was working double shifts to keep the lights on. Every dollar in that bank account represented a choice: my comfort versus their needs, my dreams versus their futures, my rest versus their opportunities. And now they saw me as nothing more than an obstacle between them and their inheritance. The anger started small, like a pilot light in my chest. Then it grew. By morning, it had become something cold and calculating, something patient and precise. But here's the thing about revenge. The sweetest kind doesn't announce itself. It wears the mask of surrender. I called Michael first. My voice shook just enough to sound defeated. "You're right, son. I've been selfish with money that should secure your futures." The relief in his voice was immediate. "Mom, I'm so glad you understand. We were worried about bringing this up, but no. You did the right thing. I needed to hear it." Jennifer's call went even smoother. She actually thanked me for being reasonable and thinking of the family first. The family. Right. Because apparently, charity work made me a traitor to my own blood. David's response was pure David. "It's about time, Mom. I've got this amazing business opportunity, and with my share of the inheritance, I can really make something of myself this time." His share. Like it was already decided. Like I was already dead. I scheduled the meeting with my lawyer for the following Friday. 1 week to put my plan into motion. 7 days to teach my children the most expensive lesson of their lives. The next few days became a whirlwind of secret meetings and careful preparations. Tuesday morning found me at the Children's Hospital, discussing their new wing project with the development director. Sweet woman named Carol, who nearly cried when I explained what I wanted to do. Wednesday, I visited the Literacy Foundation. They'd been struggling to fund their adult education programs. Not anymore. Thursday took me to the Homeless Veterans Foundation. These men and women had sacrificed everything for strangers like me. Time to return the favor. Each meeting felt like saying goodbye to old friends. The money had been my companion for 4 years, my ticket to making real change in the world. Now it would serve a different purpose. Justice wrapped in generosity. My children spent that week planning their windfall like kids before Christmas. Michael called twice to discuss investment strategies. He'd already researched high-yield bonds and mutual funds. His wife had apparently started looking at bigger houses. Jennifer scheduled lunch to talk about tax implications. She wanted to minimize the government's cut and maximize their take. Smart girl. Too bad she was using those brains to calculate her mother's worth. David showed up uninvited Thursday evening, practically bouncing with excitement about his fresh start. He'd found the perfect location for his new restaurant, already had the menu planned. The only thing missing was my money to make it happen. Friday morning arrived like Judgment Day. The lawyer's office felt appropriate for what was coming. Sterile. Cold. all mahogany furniture and leather chairs that cost more than most people's cars, the kind of place where families came to divide up the remains of a lifetime. I arrived 30 minutes early, needing time to center myself for what was coming. My hands shook slightly as I signed the final documents, not from fear, from anticipation. My children walked in together, a united front of greed and entitlement. They'd probably coordinated their arrival, maybe even carpooled to save gas money for their inheritance. Michael carried a leather portfolio filled with investment research. Jennifer had her phone out, probably running calculations on some financial app. David just looked hungry. That desperate, eager expression of someone who'd failed so many times that this money represented his last shot at relevance. They took their seats across from me with barely concealed excitement. The lawyer cleared his throat and opened his folder. "Mrs. Williams has indeed restructured her estate as requested," he began. His voice carried a weight that should have warned them something was wrong. But they were too busy counting their chickens to notice the fox in the henhouse. "However," he continued, "the liquid assets totaling $5.8 million have been distributed." The confusion started slowly. Michael's pen stopped moving across his notepad. Jennifer looked up from her phone. David's smile faltered like a candle in the wind. "Distributed?" Jennifer's voice climbed an octave. "What do you mean, distributed?" The lawyer's expression remained perfectly neutral. Professional detachment at its finest. The donations were completed yesterday to various charitable organizations. The word donations hit the room like a bomb. Michael's portfolio slipped from his hands, papers scattering across the mahogany table like confetti at a funeral. David's face went white, then green, like he might actually vomit right there on the expensive carpet. But Jennifer recovered first. She always was the sharpest of the three. "Donations? What donations?" We agreed she would distribute the inheritance to family. The lawyer picked up a different folder, thicker, more official looking. Mrs. Williams asked me to read each donation aloud, along with the memorial dedications she requested. That's when I finally spoke up, my voice steady and clear. "I thought you'd want to hear how your names will be remembered." The lawyer began reading, and I watched my children's faces transform from confusion to horror to something approaching panic. Each donation hit them like a physical blow, but the memorial dedications, that's where the real knife twisted. What came next would destroy them completely. The lawyer's voice cut through the silence like a scalpel. $1.5 million to the Children's Hospital in loving memory of Michael Williams. Michael's mouth fell open. Actually fell open, like a cartoon character who just got hit with a frying pan. $1.5 million to the Literacy Foundation in loving memory of Jennifer Williams. Jennifer made a sound I'd never heard before, something between a gasp and a dying wail. $1.5 million to the Homeless Veterans Foundation in loving memory of David Williams. David gripped the edge of the table so hard his knuckles went white. For a second, I thought he might actually pass out. But the lawyer wasn't finished. The best part was still coming. $1 million to the Regional Food Bank in loving memory of Sarah Williams' 3 beloved children. The room went dead quiet. You could have heard a pin drop in the next county. Then Michael exploded. "You can't do this. This is insane. We'll contest it. We'll sue the charities. The lawyer held up one finger. Just one. Michael's mouth snapped shut like a mousetrap. "Mrs. Williams, would you like to explain the legal standing of these donations?" I smiled. Actually smiled for the first time in a week. They're irrevocable children. Done. Finished. The money is already in the charity's accounts. The memorial plaques are already being engraved. Memorial plaques. That detail hit them like a second punch to the gut. Jennifer found her voice first, always the practical one. Memorial plaques? Mom, we're not dead. Aren't you? I asked. Because the children I raised would never have demanded their inheritance while their mother was still breathing. Those children died last week at my breakfast table." David started crying, actually crying like a toddler who dropped his ice cream. "Mom, we didn't mean it that way. We were just worried about the future, about providing for our families." "Your families?" I laughed, and it came out sharper than I intended. "David, you don't have a family. You have a string of failed relationships and a pile of debt. Michael, your real estate business is failing because you spend more time complaining than working. And Jennifer, your daughter's college fund is empty because you keep borrowing from it for vacations." The truth landed like grenades in that sterile room. Michael's face went red. "That's not fair. You don't understand the pressures we're under, the economy, the competition." "I understand perfectly," I said. "I understand that you saw my charity work as theft from your inheritance. I understand that you calculated my death like a business transaction. I understand that you wanted me to stop wasting money on strangers." I reached into my purse and pulled out the photographs. 4 glossy pictures of bronze memorial plaques, each one beautifully crafted and permanently mounted. "Well, congratulations. Your names are now forever associated with helping strangers. The Michael Williams Memorial Ward will help sick children for decades. The Jennifer Williams Literacy Center will teach adults to read. The David Williams Veterans Housing will shelter homeless heroes." David grabbed one of the photos, staring at his name engraved in bronze. "This is sick, Mom. This is twisted. What's twisted is children who see their mother as a bank account with legs." Jennifer tried a different approach. Tears started flowing down her cheeks, real tears too. "Mom, please, we made a mistake. We said things we didn't mean, but this destroys everything. How are we supposed to explain this to our kids? Tell them their mother wanted her grandmother's money more than her grandmother's love." Michael slammed his fist on the table. "We'll never speak to you again." The threat hung in the air like smoke. I stood up slowly, gathering my purse and coat. "Michael, you stopped speaking to me the day you decided I was worth more dead than alive. You just forgot to tell me." Walking toward the door, I paused. "The memorial plaques will be unveiled next month. You're invited to the ceremonies. After all, you're the guests of honor." The last sound I heard was David sobbing into his hands. Outside, the sun felt warmer than it had in weeks. At 72, I was finally free. I walked out of that lawyer's office into the brightest sunshine I'd felt in years. Behind me, my children sat in stunned silence, probably still staring at those memorial plaques with their names etched in bronze forever. The irony was perfect. They'd spend the rest of their lives explaining why their names were on charity donations they never wanted to make. Michael would have to tell his real estate clients about the Michael Williams Memorial Ward every time someone Googled his name. Jennifer's co-workers would congratulate her on the Literacy Center bearing her name. David would finally be remembered for something successful, even if he had nothing to do with it. The lawyer had handed me one final document as I left, a receipt showing exactly 6 cents remaining in my account after bank fees. 6 cents. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my purse. 72 years old and broke as the day I started that food truck. The symmetry felt intentional, like the universe had a sense of humor about these things. My phone buzzed twice on the drive home. Text messages from Michael and Jennifer, probably begging me to reverse the donations somehow. I deleted them without reading. Some conversations don't deserve responses. The house felt different when I walked in, lighter somehow. All that money had been heavy in ways I never realized. The weight of managing it, protecting it, deciding who deserved it. Now that burden belonged to people who actually understood what generosity meant. I made myself a peanut butter sandwich for lunch, same meal I'd eaten countless times when the kids were young and money was tight. Funny how it tasted better now than any expensive restaurant meal I'd had recently. That afternoon, I drove to the children's hospital where my money had already started working. The construction crew was breaking ground on the new wing, the Michael Williams Memorial Ward would help thousands of sick children over the years. A little girl in a wheelchair watched the construction through the window. Her mother explained they were building a special place to help kids like her get better. "Who paid for it?" the girl asked. "A very generous family," her mother replied. I smiled and walked away. Sometimes the best revenge is letting people think better of your enemies than they deserve. My children wanted their inheritance early. They got it. They just didn't expect it to come with their names attached to everything they claim to hate. Now they'll be remembered forever as philanthropists who cared more about strangers than their own comfort. The memorial plaques were already ordered. Bronze lasts forever, just like the lesson I taught them.